This film is about the physics, the nature of the physics in GCSE science, GCSE additional science, and GCSE physics, and the progression routes that it can lead to. GCSE science includes 3 modules. The first one is on geophysics and astronomy, the second on radiation, and the third one on radioactivity. We chose these 3 areas because they're all important to understand discussions that happen in everyday life, interests that people have about our place in the universe, and so on. So some of it is practical, some of it is about ourselves and how we view our place. Ideas about science are important in all 3 of these modules. P1, Earth and the Universe, has seemingly 2 different topics, but what holds them together is a more fundamental concern with ideas and evidence. How do we know what we know? How do new ideas develop in science? In P2, Radiation and Risk, and P3, Radioactive Materials, students explore ideas about risk. P2 introduces ideas about health studies and how they can inform decision-making about balancing benefits against risk. P3 looks at how we might decide whether to build another generation of nuclear power stations and how best we might dispose of UK's legacy of nuclear waste. In modules 4 to 6, the ideas about science are not so prominent. There are opportunities, however, to look at the relationship between data and the reliability of data, and how evidence supports a model, for example, the wave model of radiation. In P7, we look at scientists at work, how astronomers use physics to understand the universe, and how they work together as a community.
I find that the way that the units link, especially from P1 to P2 to P3, is very useful. The pupils definitely like the latter third of P1, where you're starting to look at space, starting to do a bit of the astronomy part of the course. They also enjoy the second module, P2, because it's got everyday applications. It's radiation in life. It shows them the links between suntan and cancer. It shows them a possible link between mobile phones and brain cancer. And it's really important that it shows them the errors in science that they might come across every day but not really realise that they're errors in how the science has been reported in tabloids. And it helps them understand that they shouldn't just take what's reported in a tabloid for its face value. They need to think a bit beyond that. And it's really good, the course, in that it helps the pupils develop the language, develop the vocabulary, develop the analytical skills for being able to do that.
In GCSE additional science, what we're trying to do is to look at the conceptual foundations of the subject more explicitly. So we look at forces in motion, electric circuits, and waves. In each of these areas, modelling is very important. So we see inside the mind of a physicist thinking about what's going on and using the model to make some predictions about what might happen in the future. There are conceptual links between all of the physics modules. For example, P2 introduces ideas about radiation, and students learn to think in terms of particular amounts of energy carried by photons. This is important in terms of the effects of radiation on the skin, on the retina, and so on. So the amount of energy carried by the photons will tell us whether something serious is going to happen, ionization, or whether not, whether it's safe to be exposed to the type of radiation or not. In P6, this idea is developed further, and students are introduced to more familiar ideas about wavelength and frequency, and that's related back to the idea of photons and how the energy of photons relates to their frequency. In P7, the radiation idea is picked up again, and this time we're looking at radiation from stars, what causes it, the nature of that radiation, the spread of frequencies that is typical of stars of different temperatures. In general, you might say that the modules go from a relevance to everyday issues, that's P1 to 3, to the conceptual underpinnings of physics, P4 to 6, to modern applications of physics, P7. You can see the links between the modules in the module maps, the links between the concepts and the links to ideas about science.